Pay attention to Kristin Laymon, 53 years old, walking into the elevator of the Wyndham Hotel in North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, at 2:12 in the morning on September 23, 2023. She's just escaped from a heated argument in a moving car with her boyfriend, Bornold Eberhart. She has less than 10 minutes left to live, because Bornold, 44 years old, will follow her up to their hotel room. And by morning, Kristin will be dead, strangled, wrapped up, and rolled out of the hotel in what investigators would later call chilling surveillance footage. This is the story of a vacation that became a murder scene, a 400-mile drive with a body in the trunk, and how cameras captured every calculated move a killer made to hide his crime. Kristin Laymon was 53 years old, a resident of Duluth, Georgia, in the metro Atlanta area. She'd been working at a local floral shop in Tucker for years. Steady work, decent income, a routine life in suburban Georgia. But 1 month before September 2023, Kristin's life changed. She was fired from her job at the floral shop. Losing employment at 53 is devastating. The job market isn't kind to people starting over at that age. The financial stress is immediate. The psychological impact, the loss of routine, purpose, identity, can be overwhelming. Kristin needed a break, a reset, a chance to breathe and figure out what came next. So she planned a weekend getaway to North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. The coast, the ocean. A few days to decompress from the stress of losing her job and the uncertainty of what came next. She invited her boyfriend, Bornold Eberhart, to join her. They'd been in an intimate relationship, though it wasn't particularly serious or long-term. Bornold was 44 years old, and while Kristin's adult daughter knew he existed, she didn't have a personal relationship with him. This separation of social spheres would become important later, because when Kristin disappeared, Bornold's stories about where she'd gone weren't immediately questioned by the people who knew her best. On Friday, September 22, 2023, Kristin and Bornold checked into the Wyndham Hotel on South Ocean Boulevard in North Myrtle Beach. Kristin had rented the room in her own name. She was the one who planned the trip, who paid for it, who wanted this weekend to happen. That first evening, they went out. They enjoyed the nightlife. They returned to the hotel in the early morning hours of Saturday, September 23rd. And that's when everything went wrong. At approximately 1:56 a.m. on September 23rd, 2023, surveillance cameras at the Wyndham Hotel captured Kristin and Bornold's vehicle entering the property. Inside the car, a heated argument was already underway, and it was escalating fast. The footage shows something that behavioral analysts call an emergency egress attempt. While the vehicle was still in motion, Kristin opened the passenger side door. Think about what it takes to open a car door while the car is moving. You have to feel genuine threat. You have to believe that staying in that car is more dangerous than the risk of falling out onto pavement. Kristin was trying to escape, while the car was still moving. The car eventually came to a stop. Kristin got out and walked toward the hotel lobby. At 2:12 a.m., she entered an elevator alone and went up to their room. This is the last time anyone saw Kristin Laymon alive. At 2:22 a.m., 10 minutes later, Bornold followed her into the hotel and up to the room. The period between 2:22 a.m. and the morning of September 24th is when Kristin died. The argument that started in the car continued inside the hotel room, away from cameras, away from witnesses, away from anyone who could help. The medical examiner would later determine that Kristin died of asphyxiation by strangulation. Strangulation is a deeply personal form of killing. It requires sustained physical contact. It takes time, minutes, not seconds. The killer has to maintain pressure while the victim struggles, fights, tries desperately to breathe. It's also relatively quiet. In a hotel setting, there are no gunshots to alert other guests. No immediate acoustic alarm, just a struggle that happens behind a closed door while other vacationers sleep in rooms on either side. By morning, Kristin Laymon was dead, and Bornold Eberhart was already planning how to hide what he'd done. This is where the case became truly disturbing, because what Bornold did the next morning was captured on hotel surveillance cameras in footage that investigators would later describe as chilling. At a time when normal hotel guests would be checking out or enjoying breakfast, Bornold was recorded wearing a black hoodie and gloves. In coastal South Carolina in late September, temperatures are still relatively high. There's no weather-related reason to wear a hoodie and gloves, but there's a very good forensic reason: preventing DNA transfer, avoiding fingerprints, obscuring your face from overhead cameras. The surveillance footage shows Bornold rolling something out of the hotel, something large, something body-shaped. He's using what appears to be hotel luggage equipment or a heavy-duty container, a way to move a 53-year-old woman's remains without the obvious effort of carrying a body. He rolls it to his vehicle, and then he loads it into the trunk. Kristin Laymon's body was now in the trunk of Bornold Eberhart's car, and he was about to drive 400 miles back to Georgia with her remains. Modern hotels have extensive surveillance systems, every angle, every corridor, every parking area, and all of it was recording Bornold's methodical disposal of the woman who'd invited him on this vacation. That footage would become the most damning evidence against him. After loading Kristin's body into the trunk, Bornold Eberhart left South Carolina and drove back to Georgia. It's a journey of approximately 400 miles, about 6 to 7 hours of driving. He wasn't just going home. He was moving evidence across state lines, moving the body away from the crime scene at the Wyndham Hotel, making the investigation exponentially more complicated. Once back in Georgia, Bornold began constructing what investigators call a staged innocence narrative. He sent text messages to Kristin's phone, messages framed as though he was looking for her. He claimed he hadn't seen her since the night before. He even alleged that she had taken his vehicle. He was creating a paper trail of concern, positioning himself as the worried boyfriend trying to find his missing girlfriend. It's a well-documented behavioral pattern. The perpetrator pretends to be just as confused as everyone else about where the victim went, but Kristin's adult daughter started noticing things that didn't add up. Her mother's bank account was overdrawn. There was a $1,000 Bitcoin transaction, a purchase Kristin would never have made. The daughter knew immediately this wasn't her mother's activity. Kristin didn't dabble in Bitcoin. This was someone else using her mother's money. Phone calls to Kristin went straight to voicemail. Every time. Her email was inactive. Her social media went silent. All the normal communication channels, gone. For 2 weeks, the daughter held out hope. Maybe her mother needed space. Maybe she was dealing with the stress of losing her job in her own way. But by October 9th, 2023, 2 weeks after the vacation ended, it was clear something was very wrong. Kristin's daughter filed a missing persons report with the Duluth Police Department. Duluth police immediately started tracking Kristin's last known movements. They identified the Bitcoin transaction as fraudulent. They traced her final location to North Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. This triggered a massive collaboration between South Carolina and Georgia law enforcement. The North Myrtle Beach Police Department, led by Detective McCarter and Lieutenant Mike Swarthout, began the painstaking process of reviewing weeks of resort surveillance footage. They had to find the moments that mattered. The argument, the final sighting, the disposal. And they found all of it. The footage from September 23rd, showing Kristin entering the elevator alone at 2:12 a.m. The footage from September 24th, showing Bornold in his black hoodie and gloves, rolling a body-shaped object to his vehicle, loading it into the trunk. It was all there, recorded, preserved, undeniable. Now they just had to find Kristin's body. For 6 months, investigators worked the case, reviewing footage, processing forensic evidence, building the timeline, coordinating between Georgia and South Carolina. And then, on March 3rd, 2024, they had enough evidence to secure an arrest warrant for Bornold Alistair Eberhart. Given the gravity of the charges and the potential for the suspect to be armed or flee, the DeKalb County Police Department SWAT team was utilized to execute the arrest on March 8, 2024. Bornold was taken into custody in Georgia. He would eventually be extradited to South Carolina to face the primary murder charge because that's where Kristin died, in that hotel room at the Wyndham. But there was still one critical question investigators needed to answer. Where was Kristin's body? The day after Bornold's arrest, March 9, 2024, law enforcement converged on a wooded area in DeKalb County, Georgia. The specific location was the 1800 block of Whitehall Forest Court, a dead-end road that transitions into dense forest near Boulder Crest Road and the I-285 corridor. This wasn't a random location. Investigators had discovered something crucial about Bornold's past. He had previously lived in that exact neighborhood with a former girlfriend. This is what criminologists call geographic comfort. When offenders are under extreme stress, they gravitate toward areas they know. Places where they feel a sense of ownership or familiarity. Places where they can navigate in the dark without getting lost. Bornold had driven 400 miles from South Carolina back to Georgia with Kristin's body in his trunk. And when he needed to dispose of her remains, he went to the one place he knew well enough to enter unnoticed in the middle of the night, a wooded area near where he used to live. When investigators found the remains, they were skeletal. 6 months had passed since September 2023. Georgia's humid climate and the presence of local fauna had accelerated decomposition, leaving mostly bones and clothing fragments. Despite the condition of the remains, forensic pathologists from the DeKalb County Medical Examiner's Office and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation were able to make a positive identification through dental records and DNA comparison. They also determined the cause of death, asphyxiation by strangulation. Even from skeletal remains, they could identify this through examination of the hyoid bone and other cervical structures for fractures, trauma characteristic of manual pressure applied to the neck. And there was one more piece of critical evidence. When forensic technicians processed Bornold's vehicle, the vehicle captured on surveillance footage with something body-shaped being loaded into the trunk, they found traces of Kristin Laymon's blood in the trunk, exactly where the surveillance footage showed Bornold loading her body. The forensic evidence matched the video evidence. The video evidence matched the witness statements. The witness statements matched the recovery location. Bornold Eberhart was going to prison for murder. On February 17, 2026, nearly 2.5 years after Kristin's death, Bornold Alistair Eberhart appeared in a South Carolina courtroom. He didn't plead guilty. He didn't plead not guilty. He entered what's called an Alford plea. Under the precedent set by North Carolina versus Alford in 1970, a defendant can maintain their innocence of the actual act while acknowledging that the state possesses enough evidence to likely convict them at trial. It's a pragmatic legal resolution. The defendant doesn't admit to the crime, but they accept that fighting it would be futile given the strength of the evidence. For Bornold Eberhart, the Alford plea made sense from a purely strategic standpoint. The evidence against him was overwhelming. The surveillance footage showing him rolling a body-shaped object into his trunk, the blood in that trunk matching Kristin's DNA, the text messages creating a false alibi, the financial fraud using her accounts, the body found in a location connected to his past. A jury would almost certainly convict. By entering the Alford plea, Bornold avoided a trial, but still maintained he didn't technically admit guilt. For the prosecution, the plea meant a guaranteed conviction without the expense and emotional toll of a jury trial. It meant immediate closure for Kristin's family, who'd been waiting more than 2 years for justice. Following the plea, Bornold Eberhart was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Think about that. Bornold was 44 years old when he entered his plea. A 30-year sentence means he'll be 74 years old if he serves the full term. In South Carolina's system, this is a substantial sentence that reflects the calculated nature of the concealment and the interstate transport of the body. The 15th Circuit Solicitor's Office, through Jimmy Richardson and his team, credited the relentless effort of investigators in North Myrtle Beach and Georgia for the successful outcome. The coordination required to sync surveillance footage from a beach resort with remains found in a Georgia forest 6 months later was described as a feat of modern detective work. Multiple agencies, Duluth Police Department, North Myrtle Beach Police Department, DeKalb County Police Department, and the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, had worked seamlessly across state lines to solve this case. Kristin Laymon's daughter finally had answers. Her mother's remains were recovered. The man responsible was going to prison. But nothing could bring Kristin back. Nothing could undo what happened in that hotel room in the early morning hours of September 23, 2023. The murder of Kristin Laymon highlights several critical lessons for investigators, families, and anyone trying to understand how these cases get solved. The most critical evidence in this case came from the Wyndham Hotel's surveillance system. In transient environments like hotels, the rapid preservation of digital video is absolutely paramount. If investigators hadn't secured that footage from September 24th, if hotel systems had automatically overwritten it, or if it had been lost, the link between Bornold and Kristin's final moments would have been purely circumstantial. Modern surveillance technology is the silent witness in cases like this. Hotels, parking lots, businesses, Cameras are everywhere, and they're getting better every year. Higher resolution, longer retention periods, more coverage. The fact that Bornold disposed of Kristin's body near a neighborhood where he used to live reinforces a well-known criminological principle. Offenders under extreme stress gravitate toward familiar spaces. When searching for remains, investigators should prioritize the suspect's past residences, former workplaces, and frequent locations within a 10-mile radius of their current base. That geographic familiarity provides psychological comfort even during the commission of a horrific act. The unauthorized Bitcoin transaction wasn't just theft. It was a signal that Kristin's identity was being exploited post-mortem. Her daughter recognized immediately that this wasn't something her mother would do. Financial monitoring should be initiated within the first 48 hours of any missing person case, especially those involving potential domestic violence. Unusual transactions, sudden withdrawals, cryptocurrency purchases, these are red flags that something is very wrong. This case succeeded because the Duluth Police Department and North Myrtle Beach Police Department overcame jurisdictional boundaries quickly. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation served as a bridge between the two states, allowing forensic laboratory results to be shared seamlessly. Interstate cases are notoriously difficult. Different laws, different procedures, different priorities. But when agencies work together, when they prioritize the victim over territorial concerns, justice becomes possible. Kristin Laymon went on vacation to escape the stress of losing her job. She wanted a weekend at the beach, a chance to breathe, a moment of peace. Instead, she was strangled in a hotel room by a man she trusted. Her body was hidden in a trunk and driven 400 miles. She was dumped in a Georgia forest where she remained for 6 months. Her daughter never stopped looking, never stopped pushing for answers, never accepted the idea that her mother had just disappeared. And because of that persistence, combined with excellent investigative work across multiple agencies, Bornold Eberhart is in prison for 30 years. It's justice, but it's not enough, because Kristin is still gone. If you've made it this far, thank you for learning about Kristin Laymon and the vacation that became her final journey. This case matters because it shows how modern technology, surveillance cameras, digital forensics, financial tracking, can solve crimes even when the perpetrator does everything possible to hide the evidence. Bornold Eberhart thought he was smart. He wore gloves and a hoodie. He drove 400 miles across state lines. He disposed of the body in a familiar location where he thought no one would look. He created digital alibis. He stole money to make it look like Kristin had run away. But the cameras captured him rolling that body to his car. The forensics found her blood in his trunk. The investigators tracked his movements across 2 states, and his own geographic comfort, returning to a neighborhood he knew, led them right to where he'd hidden her. Kristin was 53 years old. She'd just lost her job and was trying to figure out what came next. She deserved that chance. She deserved to rebuild, to find new work, to live the rest of her life. Remember Kristin's name. Remember that domestic violence doesn't always show warning signs until it's too late. Share this story. Support victims. Look out for each other. Because Kristin Laymon deserved better than what happened to her on that September night.